Good afternoon to you. Mark Suttle with HurricaneTrack.com here. Thursday now, October 19th, 2023. On today's update, you bet, we're going to be talking about Norma over in the East Pack. That's up to a Category 4 now. Surprise, surprise. It shouldn't be. I mean, intensity forecasting. I'm surprised even though I shouldn't be, but yeah, intensity forecasting is where the least amount of skill still resides when it comes to forecasting tropical cyclones. In the meantime, we do have Tammy in the Atlantic there approaching the islands, the windwards and the leewards. Forecast now to become a hurricane as it passes through those islands over the next couple of days, so that's something to keep an eye on. And then what happens after Norma and Tammy? We'll take a look into the future. There might be even more after these two. Absolutely, things are still hopping. I mean, we're coming up on the last third of October, and we're still talking about things happening in the tropics. Pretty remarkable. So here's the latest. Norma, Category 4. It is headed towards the Baja, maybe passing close enough to get hurricane conditions there, and that is why the hurricane watch is posted. We can look on the Hurricane Center track map just for a moment, then we'll look at our interactive map as well, and I'm going to show you something pretty interesting related to that. So yes, hurricane watch in pink there on the southern part of the Baja. Pretty decent wind field overall, but the hurricane force winds smallish, definitely. So as long as it stays far enough south, plus the fact that it'll be weakening, the hurricane force winds will hopefully stay away, but that's still a few days away. That's Saturday that we're talking about closest approach, Saturday afternoon into the evening, that is. So there's still plenty of time. We'll have to just wait and see. All right, we'll get to the Tammy track map in just a minute on our own interactive map at HurricaneTrack in just a second. First of all, satellite imagery. The loop here, there is Norma. Nice, very visible small eye, Category 4. Recon actually went out and investigated this, the Air Force Hurricane Hunters. This is another disturbance to the south and east of Norma. I am not too concerned with this at all. This, however, more concerning is Tammy. And not that it's going to be a formidable hurricane cutting through here or anything like that, but remember, please, please, please remember, it's not just, well, what category of hurricane will it be? And if there's a certain threshold, it doesn't matter to some people. Again, I said this recently, that is fine, but you need to understand impacts and a strengthening system, and this is forecast to continue to strengthen and organize as it passes through those islands. A strengthening system, in my experience, tends to bring more pronounced impacts, especially downburst winds, heavier rains, versus a system that is weakening, and I think it just makes logical sense. So we've got to keep our eyes on Tammy as well as that heads towards our friends down there in the islands. A couple other things to point out. Nice little mid-latitude storm here. I say nice. It's pretty dreary where it's occurring, but all this is going to move over this way and create a coastal storm again for our friends in the Northeast and New England proper. Other things to point out, look how darn clear it is from northern Mexico, mostly all of Texas, some low-level clouds in southeast Texas. But other than that, remarkable. Got some snow cover here, a little bit in the Rockies. There's White Sands, New Mexico. Wow, pretty neat to see how remarkably clear it is. You got fall going on in the high latitudes, summer, and tropical activity still happening in the low latitudes. I just think that's pretty neat to observe. All right, interactive tracking map over at HurricaneTrack Insider site. Something possibly notable to point out with both our systems. This position right here is from the intermediate advisory for Norma. Notice it is off the track a little bit. This is not a glitch in our coding. Mr. Woodgate made it where it works, I promise. It's not our map is broken. It's off a little bit. The system is south and west of the original forecast from 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And so the intermediate update here puts the position off of where it was supposed to be, if that makes any sense. I hope it does. How this translates later, we will have to wait and see. Does everything just shift over? It's not always that easy, but it is notable to see. And then again, zooming in just to look at particular plot times. If everything works out, the center, and this will be much more ragged and less defined once it approaches the Baja up here. But yeah, you could get some inclement weather, some squalls, maybe hurricane conditions, and then Norma weakens to a tropical storm approaching the coast of mainland Mexico. Elsewhere, let's scooch the map over and let's take a look at Tammy. Also interesting that it seems to be as well south and west of the track, and that could have some pretty big implications if it's moving along the southern end of the envelope here. And time will only tell. It's still disorganized, and disorganized systems tend to be a little bit more fickle in the way their centers move around and whatnot. So we don't want to read too much into it, but it is interesting that it is also south and west of the forecast track. Eventually, it's going to move into the islands here, so our friends anywhere from Guadeloupe up to Antigua, Barbuda, maybe St. Bart's, that vicinity. Yeah, right through the northeastern Caribbean here. And it's going to be strengthening. You go from tropical storm to hurricane, at least in the official forecast. So that means that all these islands through here are going to be dealing with very heavy rain, squally conditions. You know the drill, hopefully. Doesn't mean that it's always easy, and you can certainly get some heavy, heavy flooding. Let's just zoom in a little bit, take the track map out of the picture just for a second, at least the tracking info, and you can just look at the overall, what we have on here, the National Geographic background map. There's different thematic maps that we can show. You see right here over on, let's move this out of the way. See, just real quick, the base map that we have, you can change it to the ocean if it'll load. Maybe I'm too zoomed in. You can change it to dark, to light, to National Geographic. That's what I had. And I like this because it gives you the look of the relief, right? The mountains, the terrain. And yes, you do have some high elevations through here. So flooding is going to be a problem because this thing is a tropical cyclone. That is the first thing you need to think of. Not wind or air pressure, but rain. Tropical cyclones bring copious amounts of rain, and I just want to make sure people remember that because it is forecast to go all through this area. We put the track data back on, and you can see, yeah, you're going to get some impacts down here over the next couple of days. So everybody down there, I got some friends down there. I'm going to be in touch with them. I already have a couple of them. Interesting couple of days ahead. I wish I could just fly down there easily. It's kind of difficult, believe it or not. Fairly easy to get to San Juan and to St. Thomas. Elsewhere, you got to have that extra leg, and that gets a little bit more difficult expense-wise and logistics-wise. We'll see. I might look into it, see what's possible, but that's going to be hard to do. Nevertheless, that's why we do have friends down there through social media. We'll check in with them. A couple things just to point out on Norma, some of the track guidance here for those with interest along the Baja. Most of the afternoon guidance keeps it, again, just offshore there. And I say it, that's the center. Sometimes I can be guilty of doing what other people do, and you refer to it, and you're talking about the center. But what about the rest of the storm, which is going to be pretty big overall, right? So you get that close call to the Baja, yes, you will get impacts down there. And that's what this graphic does not show, right? These are just center point potential forecast areas from the models. Same thing if we look at Tammy over here, the afternoon model guidance. Definitely more of a shift into the islands over here, even closer now to Puerto Rico, somewhat closer overall. I mean, just a couple of days ago, it looked like this could clear the islands pretty easily. Now, it looks like it's going to clip the northeast part of the Caribbean directly. So any more westward deviations of the envelope of guidance there means more impacts for more people. All right, now this is going to be kind of an interesting trek through 3 different global models. We're going to start with the GFS, and then we're going to look at the Canadian, and then we're going to look at the Euro. And we're going to take a look at what happens with Tammy, and then I want you to see what happens after. So we're going to go out to 10 days this time around. Kind of a rare thing. It's because 10 days is too far out to take anything very seriously. But we're looking to see if there's any consistency and any kind of a signal coming after Tammy is done here in the Atlantic, and certainly Norma over off the map here in the Eastern Pacific. So let's run this out for the next few days. You see Tammy cuts through right down there through the islands, and then it moves out into the Atlantic safely far enough away from Bermuda, which is right here. No concerns, but it does look like Tammy becomes a hurricane, strengthens, continues to strengthen, adding some of those ace points, and so forth and so on. That's day 5. Now, if we drag this on out and we get to day 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, which is right there, come on, close, there's day 10. What do we see? Let's look for the big pieces of information here. Generally, and I'm looking for this curvature through here, some energy starting to try to pile up, convergence in the Southwest Atlantic and into the Caribbean Sea. High pressure up here, a different type of pattern than we have right now. And that is the key. Not the little details, is there a hurricane in there somewhere, but is the pattern changing? That's a bigger signal than individual weather systems, and in this case, hurricanes, tropical cyclones. It looks like, on the GFS, that the pattern is going to change and become, at least conditionally, a little bit more favorable than we have right now for those areas. It's favorable over here where Tammy is, obviously, but it might become more favorable somewhere in this zone in a little bit over a week, 10 days to be precise. So remember that, GFS. What about the Canadian? Let's move it out. Now the Canadian's more west with Tammy, and it brings it pretty darn close to the U.S. and British Virgin Islands over here, if not right over some of them. So that's a bit concerning. That is valid on Saturday morning, so that's coming up. If I'm going to get down there, that's going to be really hard. I'm going to look, but that's hard to do. I need a private jet. Anybody? Probably not. Anyway, back to the task at hand. Tammy moves through. Run this out. The Canadian goes out to 10 days. So let's just see what happens. It, too, indicating a pattern change. Same kind of thing. Big old high pressure over the southern United States, western Atlantic. Lowering of pressures here, converging of air, piling up, all that good stuff that we look for. All right, that's what we look for, the pattern. And it matches pretty closely with what the GFS shows. Finally, the euro, and let's refresh this to see if we get out to 10 days. Want to make sure, because this is the 3-hour increment, full euro as we call it. What about Tammy? It's a little bit more east of the GFS, and so certainly more east than the Canadian, as we watch Tammy there. Scooch this on out, and this goes almost to 10 days. Yep, it actually did make it all the way to 10 days. Good. It should. It's after 4 o'clock, for goodness sakes. Here, too, same kind of thing. High pressure over the western Atlantic, southeastern United States here. A lowering of pressures, a big old gyre sitting down in the western Caribbean, and even some activity in the southeastern Pacific. So all 3 global models here show a similar pattern in the 10-day time frame. Now, the question will become, obviously, does something take advantage of that? We do still have these impulses coming from Africa, even though they are weaker now. They are there, and they are seeding the Atlantic with energy. And just the time of year, the piling up of air, what we call convergence, happening in the Caribbean. The pattern's going to change. It's been kind of a fall-like pattern, a little bit below normal. It's been kind of chilly here in Wilmington, North Carolina, where I am. That'll all change, it looks like. At least that's what these models are showing. These are big signals. In other words, large pieces of the picture. And that's important to focus on instead of individual details like I said, oh, is there a hurricane there at 10 days? That's not what we're looking for yet. Let's see if the pattern sets up, and then we'll see if something develops to take advantage of it. And I'm probably going to jinx everybody because the other day, was it yesterday? I showed all the water temperatures around here, and I said, hey, we're pretty much done, but you never say never. And it's not just the U.S., too, obviously. I mean, look, this is not the United States. Mexico is not the United States, and they're going to get impacts from Norma and Tammy. So something might try to get going here that we need to be watching closely in the next week to 10 days. And another big clue, look at how warm the water temperatures are relative to average across this area still. So absolutely, if the pattern sets up, we just might have something to watch. Even if it's a big rainmaker, that is an impact. Over at Storm 2K, they're watching it. People talking about it as early as yesterday. Some of the models indicating a lower of pressures. This thread here, the continuing discussion out through day 16. Good group of people over there where we can rationally discuss things that are far out in time, because there too we're looking for these patterns. And you got this lowering of pressure. This is the anomaly from the euro. and quite a bit lower. I mean, look at that. That's not a sign of a hostile Atlantic at all. All those blues indicate lower pressures than the 1981 through 2010 background state, right? That's climatology. And then just scrolling through different posts from folks. Yeah, some of the modeling there, that's last night into today. Some of the models show it, some don't. And yeah, so you get the idea. People are watching it. We're aware of it. Something might try to spin up. That's what we look for. We shall see. Build the pattern first. See what develops later. And we'll certainly be on top of that. But in between, we don't want to ignore, of course, the fact that we do have Norma and, of course, over on the east side there, Tammy. Two systems getting towards late October. Hurricane season still chugging along. Wow. That's about it. I think I'll wrap it up on that note. As always, thank you for tuning in. From all of us at Hurricane Track, we do appreciate your time and your attention. And as always, I hope you learned something. That's a big part of all this. I am Mark Sudduth. I'll be back with more for you tomorrow.